I'm Sterling, this is Brilliant Stupidity, and here is how you can find every health restoration weapon in Elden Ring. First, we're going to be looking for the Serpent God's Curved Sword, which heals for 60 HP every time you get a kill. We're going to be starting at the ruin-strewn precipice side of Grace here. You can get to this starting in the Liurnia of the Lakes region and then heading to the northmost part of the lake, climbing up a few ladders and making your way through a tunnel. From here, we're going to head directly north and take this elevator up. There's a few enemies to deal with here, but nothing too difficult if you're high enough level to have reached this area naturally. Most of the enemies we're going to be dealing with are bats here, before we end up fighting a giant land octopus. If you're having trouble dealing with the bats, you can switch weapons. Some weapons really have trouble hitting enemies that are flying, so I really like the Twin Blade for this personally. Do be careful not to roll off the cliff while you're fighting up here. I've done that more times than I'd like to admit. The Serpent God's Curved Sword is the only weapon we're going to be looking at here that restores a set amount of HP per kill at 60. We're also going to be finding the Greathorn Hammer later, which restores 3% of your maximum HP per kill. If you have over 2000 HP, that'll be more than 60, and if you have under 2000 HP, it'll be less. We'll also be looking at a few weapons that restore 1% of your HP per attack that hits, that is. Both the Great Star's Mace and the Sacred Butchering Knife restore exactly 1% of your maximum HP per attack, which can be very good when paired with some Ashes of War that can damage enemies multiple times with a single cast. Now, right under this giant land octopus, we can find the Serpent God's Curved Sword, but we do have to kill it first. It's very difficult to just sneak in behind there. This guy's really not too hard to deal with, though. Just the same as all the ones you've encountered previously, not more difficult or anything unless you're under-leveled. Right back here, you can find the Serpent God's Curved Sword. At the end of the video, we're going to take a look through and test all of the weapons just briefly. Just about 20 seconds each weapon, just showing the movesets and all of that. You can skip ahead if you want to see that now. So, the Great Star's Mace, which as I previously mentioned, heals 1% of your total HP every single time you land a hit with it, is in the Altus Plateau region. It's on the north side of it in a caravan. So we're going to be starting at the forest-spanning Great Bridge side of Grace, then heading to this teleporter right here, which will bring us directly to the north, to the other side of the bridge. From there, we're going to be heading to the southwest. This teleporter is extremely convenient. Down there to the left, you can see, just briefly, the caravan that we're going to be looking for. It is quite heavily guarded, but for the most part you can split off the enemies into groups and then defeat them one at a time if you need to. Also, you don't need to kill all of them in order to take the Great Star's Mace. You don't even need to kill the giants up front. You can just grab it out of the back while it's moving. Just as a quick note, all of the weapons we're going to be finding in this video are upgradable using normal smithing stones, and you can also change their Ash of War and specialty. The Pumpkinhead here is the most difficult enemy. Other than that, it's pretty just normal Lindell soldiers. not the higher level or elite variants, just the normal foot soldiers. Here is the Great Star's Mace. This is a pretty awesome weapon, especially if you pair it with the right Ash of War. It can be very, very useful. Next, we're going to be finding the Sacred Butchering Knife, which also heals you for 1% of your total HP per attack. In order to find this, we're going to be heading directly southwest of where we just got the Great Star's Mace, right in that caravan, or you can just follow the same path to get to the other side of the bridge and then head down here. You can pick up some blood grease there, may as well. Now we're just going to head over the bridge and into the Mount Glenlair region. You can see where I am on the map here, and once we're into Mount Glenlair region on the other side of this bridge, we're going to be heading up slightly to the north, right to that little building there, that little hut. We're going to be invaded once we get there by Anastasia the Tarnish Eater. You may want to consider just slightly optimizing your build for PvP if you're using a super heavy weapon or something like that, because this can be a somewhat difficult enemy to defeat. Really not nearly as bad as some of the other scripted invasions in the game, but, you know, if you struggle with those, you may want to consider that. This is one of the coolest, battle scenes in the entire game, in my opinion, with the Iron Maiden still fighting the Lindale soldiers. All of the fortifications and all of that, it just looks really cool and aesthetic. There's several dogs here. You're going to want to kill most, if not all of them, before you start the actual invasion here, which will automatically trigger just as you get closer to the shack. I didn't manually dismount Torrent there, it happened automatically because I'm about to be invaded in this area. It also makes sense to buff up. I didn't actually end up needing these buffs. I ended up not getting hit by her once. She is fairly slow, but if she hits you, it does pack a punch. If you're curious as to my build, I'll show you that in just a second here. But she does seem to be fairly weak to jump attacks. The Sacred Butchering Knife can be very strong, but she wields it very poorly. It has a good moveset, but it does take a little bit of getting used to and working around. So my character's level 76 here with Godric's Rune active, and I'm using the Keen Twin Blade plus 14. With magic grease on it. The magic grease wasn't really necessary, but, you know. Next, we're going to be heading to the Worshipper's Woods side of Grace in the Siofra River region, where we're going to be looking for the Greathorn Hammer. As I mentioned earlier, the Greathorn Hammer restores 3% of your maximum HP per kill. Now, unfortunately, the Greathorn Hammer isn't a guaranteed drop. You're going to have to farm it off of this particular Ancestral Spirit. This is my 4th attempt at getting it. I did get pretty lucky in getting it on the 4th attempt. I'm not sure how many tries it will take you. I would guess that the drop rate is in the double digits, but I can't really tell. So let's take a quick look at the weapons here. I've upgraded them all to plus 12 and gotten a somewhat relevant Ash of War on them. Taking a look at the Serpent God's curved sword, it has a pretty good moveset, but its only real downside is its lack of range. The Butchering Knife, on the other hand, has a good amount of range but a fairly slow attack pattern. It does take some getting used to, but its heavy attack, especially its jumping heavy attack, can be very strong. Also, it's compatible with the Golden Land Ash of War, which can heal you for about 8% of your HP. The Great Star's Mace is a little bit slower than the Butchering Knife, and I also don't like its attack pattern quite as much, but it's also compatible with the Golden Land Ash of War, and it does have that native bleed effect. If you're a big fan of Great Hammers, you could definitely make this work, but it's just not for me. The Greathorn Hammer here has a pretty great moveset in my opinion. It's light attack, it's heavy attack, jump attack, all of that. It's quite strong. You can basically adapt it to any situation. The great thing about both the Serpent God's Curved Sword and the Greathorn Hammer is that they don't need to be in your main hand or even contribute to the kill you get in order to restore your HP. So if you really want to restore a ton of HP constantly, and you're willing to change your build in order to do so, you can check out my video on the Blasphemous Blade here. It heals you significantly, both when you get a kill and when you land its special attack. And these effects stack, allowing you to heal up to about 500 HP when you get a kill using its special. It does take quite a while to get though. You have to go way further out of your way than you would for the other weapons. You have to kill Riker, the Lord of Blasphemy, in the Volcano Manor. I have a full walkthrough of how to do that, and you can watch it right here on the top of the screen. That's all. Thanks for watching. Consider dropping a like and subscribing if you want to see more videos like this.